I guess I should start from the beginning. My name is Jake, and I was married to a woman named Sarah for 5 years. We met in college and quickly fell in love, at least that's what I thought. Our relationship was your typical romantic comedy until it became a drama, which I suppose should have been my first clue. The warning signs were there. I just chose to ignore them. Looking back, it's like I had blinders on. Sarah was ambitious and beautiful. She had this magnetic personality that drew people in. But over the past year or so, I noticed subtle changes. At first, they were easy to dismiss. She was spending late hours at work, or her phone buzzed incessantly during dinner. I thought it was just her being dedicated to her job as a marketing manager. But the longer I let it go, the more I felt annoying discomfort in my gut. The turning point came one evening when I returned home earlier than usual. I was excited to surprise her with a home-cooked meal. I pulled into the driveway, the smell of garlic and rosemary wafting through the house. But as I walked in, I noticed something was off. The house was eerily quiet. The lights were dimmed and Sarah's usual energetic presence was absent. I looked around and noticed her phone was lying face down on the kitchen counter, buzzing like a madman. Curious, I glanced at the screen. It lit up to reveal a message from someone named Mike. As soon as the name registered in my mind, a wave of nausea washed over me. I knew a Mike. He was her life coach or motivational guru, as she liked to call him. She had raved about him endlessly, claiming how he was helping her become her best self. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I tried to calm down, telling myself that I was overreacting, but the seed of doubt had taken root. So I did the unthinkable. I opened her messages. What I found shattered my world. There were flirty exchanges, emojis, and even plans for a private coaching session. I felt a fire ignite within me, a mix of betrayal and rage. I felt like a fool for letting it go this far. An hour later, Sarah walked in, looking radiant. As she often did, she kissed me on the cheek, an unsuspecting gesture that made my blood boil. I couldn't hold back any longer. I confronted her right there in our living room, my heart pounding in my chest. "What's going on between you and Mike?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. Her initial reaction was confusion, followed by a wave of indignation. "What are you talking about, Jake? He's just my coach," she snapped. But as I laid out the evidence, I could see the color drain from her face. I wanted to scream, to make her feel the pain she had inflicted upon me, but I was stuck in this surreal moment, watching her scramble for excuses. "Oh, come on, Jake. You're being paranoid. It's all professional. You're just jealous because I'm trying to improve myself." She shot back, her voice dripping with condescension. She was trying to manipulate me, and in that moment I realized just how deep her lies had woven themselves into our lives. I felt like I was floating above my own body, watching this exchange unfold as if it were some terrible movie. The woman I knew was unraveling before me, and all I could do was stand there trying to process the betrayal. Her words cut deep. They fueled the anger and sadness swirling inside me. I felt like my world was collapsing, but a part of me also felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about my entire life and relationship. The confrontation led to more shouting and crying, but ultimately it set a new course. As she stormed out of the room, I felt a mix of relief and despair. I no longer knew who I was or what I wanted. The only thing I was sure of was that I couldn't go on living in this lie. It was time for a change. I had been the supportive husband, the one who always encouraged her dreams, but where did that leave me? I decided I needed to focus on myself, to figure out who I was outside of Sarah. It was a long road ahead, but I was determined to become my best self, just like she had claimed to be doing. And so, the journey began. Little did I know that this moment of devastation would lead to a path of self-discovery and transformation. After that explosive confrontation with Sarah, I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, and even a sense of liberation. It was as if I had been in a fog for years, and someone had just lifted the veil. But I had no idea how to navigate this new reality. I didn't want to wallow in self-pity, but I also didn't want to brush this incident under the rug. I needed to process everything. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to wrap my mind around what had happened. I felt like I was in a bad dream, and any moment I would wake up to find everything back to normal. But reality sank in quickly. I was alone in our once vibrant home, filled with echoes of laughter and love that now felt distant and hollow. It wasn't long before I decided to take action. I reached out to a close friend, Mike. Yes, the same name that had been haunting me. This Mike was different. He was a college buddy who had always been there to lend an ear. We went out for drinks and I poured my heart out. I shared everything from Sarah's late nights to the messages I found. He listened intently, and I could see the anger bubbling beneath his calm demeanor. "You deserve better than this, man," he said, clenching his jaw. "You've been supporting her while she's out there screwing around. It's time to focus on yourself for a change." His words struck a chord, igniting something deep within me. With Mike's encouragement, I decided to take a different approach. I began to journal my thoughts and feelings. It felt good to vent on paper, to unload the weight I had been carrying alone. I started diving into self-help books, articles on personal growth, and even motivational podcasts, anything that could help me make sense of this chaos. I realized that maybe this was a chance to become the best version of myself, a journey that Sarah had taken but I had neglected. As the weeks passed, I focused on self-improvement. I hit the gym for the first time in years, channeling my frustration into workouts. I went on hikes, joined a local club, and even took up cooking, things I had previously sacrificed for Sarah's ambitions. I connected with old friends, rekindled relationships that had been strained during our marriage, and slowly I began to rediscover my own identity. But while I was trying to uplift myself, Sarah was still very much a presence in my life. She would occasionally text, often trying to justify her actions. "You never understood me, Jake," she would write, or "You pushed me to this." Each message stung like a bee, but I had made the decision to not engage with her drama. I was done with her excuses. Eventually, I reached a point where I felt ready to confront her again, not from a place of anger but from a space of understanding and clarity. I needed closure, not just for her sake but for my own. I invited her over for a conversation. I wanted to lay everything out on the table. When she arrived, she looked as beautiful as ever, but this time I felt a sense of detachment. I had been working hard on myself, and I wasn't about to let her charm sweep me back into her web of deceit. "Sarah, we need to talk about what happened," I said firmly, my heart racing but my resolve strong. She sat on the edge of the couch, her posture tense. "What else is there to say, Jake? I messed up, okay? It was a mistake." "Was it just a mistake?" I challenged, looking her straight in the eyes. "Or was it something deeper? I need to know if you were ever really committed to this marriage." Her eyes flickered with uncertainty. "You don't understand. I was trying to figure myself out. Maybe I did get lost along the way, but I loved you." "I don't think you know what love is," I shot back, feeling a mixture of sadness and empowerment. "Love isn't about using someone as a crutch while you chase after your own desires." The conversation escalated, filled with accusations and defenses. But this time, something felt different. I wasn't drowning in her words. I was standing my ground. I expressed how her betrayal shattered my trust and how it wasn't something easily fixed. "Maybe we should take some time apart," I suggested, my voice steadier than I expected. "I need to figure out what I want, and I can't do that while you're in the picture." She hesitated, and for a moment it looked like she might cry. "Jake, please don't do this. I can change." But I shook my head. "It's not about change. It's about honesty and integrity, things that have been lacking between us for a while." As she left, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was sad about the end of a chapter, but exhilarated by the promise of a new beginning. I was no longer just the supportive husband. I was reclaiming my life, and I was ready to step into this new version of myself. It was the start of a transformative journey, one that I was determined to embrace wholeheartedly. After Sarah left that day, the air in the house felt lighter, as if the weight of our tumultuous relationship had finally been lifted. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything, on her betrayal, on my own feelings, and on the journey I had embarked upon toward self-discovery. It was a mix of clarity and chaos, but I was determined to keep moving forward. I dove deeper into personal development. I signed up for new classes at the local community center, cooking and photography too. I had always been interested in these hobbies but had put them on the back burner to accommodate Sarah's ambitions and interests. With every new recipe I learned or photo I snapped, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was discovering passions I had forgotten existed, and it felt exhilarating. On one of those evenings filled with creativity, I was in the kitchen whipping up a Thai curry when Mike, my friend, texted me. "Hey man, how about a guy's night this weekend? Just us some beers and a game, you in?" "Absolutely," I replied, feeling the need for camaraderie. That weekend we gathered at my place and it felt good to laugh and joke with friends. I realized how much I had neglected these connections while being consumed by my marriage. As we laughed over the game, Mike turned serious for a moment. "How are you really holding up, man? This isn't just about the cheating anymore. It's about you figuring out what you want in life." I appreciated how straightforward he was. "Honestly, I'm feeling better every day. It's tough, but it feels good to reclaim my life, you know. I've started focusing on myself for the first time in years." "That's what you need to do," he said, giving me a supportive pat on the back. "Use this as an opportunity to become who you always wanted to be." As the weeks went by, I continued to immerse myself in self-improvement. I started going to the gym regularly, pushing myself in ways I hadn't done in years. I was dropping weight, gaining strength, and for the first time in a long time, I was starting to feel confident in my own skin again. But just as I was settling into this new routine, Sarah started to rear her head again. She'd text occasionally, asking how I was doing, trying to rekindle some form of communication. At first, I entertained her messages, responding politely while keeping my distance. I wanted her to understand that I was moving on, that I was no longer the person she could manipulate. One evening, she asked if we could meet up for coffee. Part of me hesitated. I didn't want to rekindle old wounds. But curiosity got the better of me. I agreed, thinking I could maintain composure and set boundaries. When we met at a quaint cafe downtown, I was surprised to see how she had changed. She looked different, almost softer, as if the weight of our situation had impacted her as well. We exchanged pleasantries, but the conversation felt awkward, charged with unspoken tension. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Jake," she started, her voice shaky. "I know I hurt you. I can't take back what I did, but I want to try and make things right. Maybe we could start fresh." I felt a surge of anger. Fresh? "After everything, how do you expect me to trust you again?" I shot back, not bothering to hide my frustration. "You were the one who broke our vows, Sarah. You can't just pretend it didn't happen." Her eyes glistened with tears, and I could see the guilt etched on her face. "I know I was wrong. I was lost, and I thought Mike could help me, but it was a mistake. I realize that now. I want you back, Jake." Those words struck me hard, but instead of feeling flattered, I felt a deep sense of sadness. The woman sitting across from me was like a ghost of the person I once loved. She was trying to manipulate the situation, playing on my emotions as she always had. "I'm not the same person you knew, Sarah," I said firmly, trying to maintain my resolve. "I've changed. I'm working on becoming the man I want to be, and that doesn't involve going back to the past." Her expression shifted from desperation to anger. "So what? You're just going to throw us away? You think you can do better?" "It's not about doing better, it's about doing what's right for me," I replied, my voice steady. "This isn't just some game for me anymore. I'm done with the lies and deceit. I deserve honesty and respect, and I can't get that from you." The conversation spiraled from there. The cafe became a battleground of emotions. I felt empowered standing my ground, but it was painful to see Sarah unravel. It was clear that she was struggling with her own guilt, but I couldn't allow her to pull me back into her chaos. Eventually, I stood up to leave, feeling relieved yet emotionally drained. "I wish you well, Sarah, but I need to move on for good. I hope you find what you're looking for." As I walked away, I felt a strange mix of grief and satisfaction. I had taken a huge step in reclaiming my life, setting boundaries and choosing myself over someone who had betrayed me. That night, I returned home and reflected on how far I had come. I was not just surviving, I was thriving. I knew I had a long way to go, but I was finally on the right path, one that was mine and mine alone. The days turned into weeks, and the more time I spent focusing on myself, the more clarity I gained about what I truly wanted in life. I was growing, and I discovered that the journey of self-improvement wasn't just about healing from a broken marriage. It was about finding my own passions, reconnecting with who I was before Sarah, and discovering who I was meant to be. After our coffee meeting, Sarah tried reaching out a few more times, but each time I remained firm in my resolve. I didn't respond every time, and I refused to let her manipulate my feelings. I was proud of that. I was no longer the naive husband who overlooked red flags. I was a man who knew his worth. One Saturday, while I was at the gym, I met a woman named Emily. She was an instructor at the fitness studio I had just started attending and had a bright smile that lit up the room. We struck up a conversation after a particularly tough class, and I found myself enjoying her company more than I had anticipated. There was something refreshing about her energy, and it was a nice change from the heavy emotions I had been dealing with. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I began hanging out more. We explored new restaurants, went hiking, and spent evenings laughing over coffee. I was still cautious about diving into anything romantic, but it felt good to connect with someone on a more relaxed level. Emily was genuine and supportive, and I appreciated that she seemed to understand my situation without the need for me to over-explain. One particular evening, we were hiking up a trail that overlooked the city. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over everything, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We reached a viewpoint, and as we stood there taking in the view, I felt a connection with Emily that I hadn't experienced in a long time. "I'm really glad we met," she said, turning to me with a smile. "You seem like you're in a good place." I decided to open up a little. "Honestly, it's been a tough few months. I was in a pretty toxic relationship, but I'm finally moving on and focusing on myself again." She gave me an understanding nod. "That's really important. It's hard to let go of the past, but it sounds like you're on the right path." Her words resonated with me, and I felt a warmth in my chest. I wasn't just moving on. I was thriving, and it was starting to show in every aspect of my life. As we continued to spend time together, I realized that Emily wasn't just a distraction. She was someone who encouraged me to be my best self, just as I was trying to do for myself. I found myself laughing more, feeling lighter than I had in years, and slowly I began to let my guard down. One evening, while having dinner at a cozy bistro, I finally took the plunge and asked, "So, how would you feel about us going out on an official date?" Emily's eyes lit up, and she smiled broadly. "I'd really like that, Jake." That moment felt like a turning point. It was risky, entering into a new relationship so soon after the trauma of my marriage, but it also felt exhilarating. I was reclaiming my life on my own terms, and chasing happiness with someone who shared my values and interests was part of that journey. However, even as I began to explore this new connection, Sarah's shadow loomed in the background. She would occasionally send me messages, often laced with guilt or attempts to rekindle conversations about our past. I remained steadfast, responding only when necessary, making it clear that I was moving forward. One day, I received a particularly disheartening message from her. She wrote about how she was struggling, feeling lost without me, and how she regretted everything that had happened. It was heart-wrenching to read, and for a moment I felt a flicker of compassion for her. But then I remembered the pain she had caused and the resolve I had built over the past months. I took a deep breath and typed a response. "Sarah, I'm sorry you're feeling this way, but I need to prioritize my mental health and happiness. I hope you can understand that I'm moving on, and I wish you the best." Sending that message was liberating. It felt like I was finally cutting the last ties that had bound me to a painful past. I had made it clear that I wouldn't allow her to manipulate my emotions any longer. As I moved forward with Emily, I started to feel a sense of completeness I hadn't experienced in a long time. I was happy, genuinely happy. We began exploring our chemistry, sharing dreams and aspirations, and I could feel the excitement of a new chapter unfolding in front of me. But I also knew that I had to be cautious. I didn't want to rush into anything without fully allowing myself to heal. I talked openly with Emily about my past, and she was incredibly understanding. "Take all the time you need, Jake. I'm here for you," she assured me. With Emily, I didn't feel rushed or pressured. I felt secure. And that was a refreshing change. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself falling for her, and it was nice to feel those feelings return. I was learning to trust again, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next together. But just when I thought I was gaining footing in this new life, Sarah re-emerged, and this time she had a bombshell of her own. One evening, as I was getting ready to meet Emily for dinner, I received a call from Sarah. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jake, we need to talk. I've made some decisions, and I think you deserve to know." I felt a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "What is it, Sarah?" "It's about Mike," she said, her voice trembling. "He and I, we're in a relationship now." That revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't sure how to feel, but I quickly realized I didn't feel anger or jealousy. Instead, I felt pity. I recognized that she was trying to fill the void she created, using someone else to mask her own insecurities. "Okay," I replied, my voice calm. "I hope you find what you're looking for, but I have to go now." I hung up and took a deep breath, realizing how far I had come. I was no longer bound by her decisions or her choices. I was finally free, embracing a future that was mine. With renewed determination, I walked out the door to meet Emily, ready to take on the world, filled with hope and the realization that I was truly moving on. I was becoming my best self, and I wouldn't look back. As I stepped out into the cool evening air, I felt a surge of anticipation wash over me. I was on my way to meet Emily, a woman who had brought a newfound light into my life. My conversation with Sarah had been a pivotal moment, not just because of her revelation about Mike, but because it reaffirmed how much I had grown. I had reclaimed my life, and I was determined to keep pushing forward. Dinner with Emily was nothing short of delightful. We shared laughter over our meals, exchanged stories about our childhoods, and opened up about our ambitions for the future. There was a chemistry between us that felt natural and effortless, and it was liberating to connect with someone who genuinely cared. As we finished our meal, I caught a glimpse of the woman sitting across from me. Emily was vibrant, confident, and encouraged me to embrace the new beginnings that had emerged from my past struggles. I was thankful for her presence in my life and the support she provided. "Jake, I'm really glad we're doing this," she said, her voice warm. "I know you've been through a lot, and I admire how you're handling everything." Her words struck a chord, and I felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you, Emily. It's been a journey, but I finally feel like I'm on the right path. I don't want to rush anything between us, but I also want to be honest. You mean a lot to me." Her smile brightened the dim restaurant. "I feel the same way. Let's take our time and see where this goes. No pressure." As we left the restaurant, the night air felt refreshing, filled with possibilities. I walked Emily to her car, and as she turned to say good night, she leaned in and kissed me softly. It was a gentle, tentative kiss that sent butterflies flitting through my stomach. I stepped back, surprised but pleasantly so, and watched her drive away with a sense of hope. The next few weeks continued to be a whirlwind of personal growth, new adventures, and blossoming feelings for Emily. I was finally achieving the balance I had longed for, pursuing my own interests while also nurturing a budding relationship. I found myself looking forward to our dates, each one more enjoyable than the last. But just as I was settling into this new rhythm, Sarah reached out again. This time she sent a lengthy message, filled with apologies, reflections on her mistakes, and a plea for us to reconnect. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching, Jake. I realize how much I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry. I want to make amends," she wrote. Reading her message stirred up old emotions. I felt anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I quickly reminded myself how far I had come. I didn't want to be pulled back into her chaos. I took a moment to think before responding. "Sarah, I appreciate your message, but we can't go back to what we had. I've moved on and I'm focusing on my own happiness now. I hope you can respect that." After I hit send, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. I was drawing my line in the sand, firmly asserting that I would no longer let her emotions dictate my life. Days passed, and I continued to cultivate my relationship with Emily. We explored new hiking trails, attended art festivals, and even started trying out new recipes together. It felt like I was finally living life to the fullest, and I was enjoying every moment. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah hadn't given up so easily. I sensed that she was still trying to find ways to insert herself into my life, and I was determined not to let that happen. Then one evening, things took a turn. Emily and I were sitting on my couch, enjoying a movie, when I received a text from an unknown number. I opened it, and my heart sank. It was a photo of Sarah, taken from a distance, standing outside my apartment building. The message read, "I miss you, Jake. I'll always be waiting." My stomach dropped. I quickly glanced at Emily, who had been casually scrolling through her phone. "I need to step outside for a moment," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I stepped out onto the balcony, taking a deep breath to gather my thoughts. This was crossing the line. I felt a surge of anger and protectiveness rise within me. I couldn't let Sarah's obsession with our past disrupt the happiness I was building with Emily. I texted Sarah back, my fingers trembling with frustration. "This isn't okay, Sarah. You need to stop trying to insert yourself into my life. I've moved on and you need to do the same." I hit send and returned to the couch, forcing a smile for Emily. I didn't want to ruin our evening, but I felt unsettled. I needed to calm myself down. "Everything okay?" Emily asked, concern written across her face. "Yeah, just dealing with some lingering issues from my past," I said, keeping it vague. "Let's just enjoy the movie." As the evening wore on, I struggled to focus on the film. My mind was racing, replaying the text from Sarah and the implications it held. I knew I had to address this once and for all to put a definitive end to her attempts at manipulation. The next day, I called Mike to talk about what had happened. "She's stalking you," he replied, disbelief in his tone. "That's messed up, man. You need to confront her directly. She's not letting you move on." I knew he was right. I couldn't allow her to disrupt my life any longer. I decided to ask Sarah to meet one last time to lay everything out on the table. I needed to make it clear that her actions were unacceptable, and if she truly wanted to respect my boundaries, she would have to let me go. When I sent her the message asking to meet, I felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. I was no longer the man she could manipulate. I was taking control of my life. The meeting was set for that weekend, and while I felt nervous, I knew it was necessary. I was ready to stand my ground and end this chapter of my life for good, once and for all. Little did I know how this confrontation would shape the final stages of my journey toward healing. The day of the meeting with Sarah arrived, and I felt a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. I was determined to lay everything out clearly, to finally explain that her actions were not only hurtful but also unacceptable. I couldn't let her continue to disrupt my life or the new happiness I had found with Emily. I chose a public cafe for our meeting, wanting to avoid any potential drama that could arise if we were alone. As I sat at a corner table, I felt the anxiety build, but I reminded myself of how far I had come. I was not the same man I had been when I was with Sarah. I had grown, and I was ready to assert myself firmly. When Sarah walked in, I noticed she looked different, a little more subdued than usual. She wore a fitted dress, her hair flowing, but there was an uncertainty in her eyes. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly reminded myself that I needed to be resolute. "Jake," she said softly as she approached the table, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sarah," I replied, maintaining my composure. "Thank you for coming." We sat down and I took a deep breath before diving into the conversation. "I want to be clear about why we're here today. I need you to understand that your behavior has crossed a line. Texting me, showing up outside my apartment, it's unacceptable." She looked taken aback but quickly regained her composure. "I know I've made mistakes, Jake. I'm struggling here. I've lost myself and I thought maybe we could work through this together." "Work through what exactly?" I interjected, my heart racing. "You can't just erase the past. You broke my trust and I've spent months rebuilding my life without you. I'm finally in a good place and I can't let you pull me back into the chaos." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I refused to back down. "I genuinely hope you find happiness, but it has to be without me. I need you to respect my boundaries. This isn't about anger or resentment, it's about moving on." her face contorted with emotion, somewhere between anger and desperation. "But I love you, Jake. I've always loved you." I felt a wave of pity wash over me, but I couldn't let it sway me. "That love doesn't justify the pain you caused. You had the chance to make things right, and instead you chose to betray me. I can't go back to that." Silence hung between us, heavy and tense. I could see the realization dawning on her face that I was serious. I was finally standing my ground, and it seemed to shake her. "Please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I want to change. Can't we just start over?" "No, Sarah. We can't," I said firmly. "Starting over would mean ignoring everything that happened. I've worked too hard to get to this point, and I won't allow you to disrupt my life any longer. You need to find your own path, live your own life, and let me live mine." The finality in my voice seemed to hit home. I watched as she wiped away a tear, her expression shifting from desperation to acceptance. "I really am sorry for everything, Jake. I didn't realize how much I'd hurt you until it was too late." "I know," I replied softly, feeling the weight of the moment, "but this is it. I wish you all the best, but I need to move forward. It's time to close this chapter for good." With that, I stood up, ready to walk away from the emotional weight of our past. As I turned to leave, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I was reclaiming my power, and I wasn't looking back. In the following weeks, I focused on nurturing my relationship with Emily. We had deep conversations about our desires and dreams, and I found myself falling for her in ways I hadn't thought possible. With every laugh we shared and every adventure we embarked on, I felt the remnants of my past slowly fade away. I realized that I was no longer defined by my marriage to Sarah. I was Jake, a man who had endured heartache and betrayal but had emerged stronger. I was on a journey of self-discovery, and I was finally embracing the happiness I had longed for. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I felt proud of the person I had become. I had learned the importance of self-worth, the value of setting boundaries, and the necessity of surrounding myself with people who genuinely uplifted me. To anyone going through similar struggles, I would offer this piece of advice: you are worth the fight. Surround yourself with those who support your growth, and don't be afraid to let go of toxic relationships. It's never too late to reclaim your life and pursue the happiness you deserve. I had learned a hard lesson, but it was one that ultimately led me to become the best version of myself. I was finally living life on my own terms, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take me next.